Most important dates. November 4th, 2025. Ann Arbor, Michigan, USA. Even before he was a history teacher, Chandler Gooch loved important dates. He loved them so much, he kept ranked lists of the top 100 events in world history, U.S. history, and Michigan state history. The lists changed as Chandler discovered new information or decided something was more or less important than he previously thought. At the top of his current list for U.S. history was July 4, 1776, the commonly accepted date for the signing of the Declaration of Independence. This was followed by April 12, 1861, the start of the Civil War. July 20, 1969, the date for the first moon landing, sat at number 3 on his list, although Chandler had moved it as low as number 10 on previous lists. Not only did he have his top 100 dates memorized, he could tell detailed stories about the people involved in each one. Much to Chandler's unending disappointment, the high school students who filled the desks of his classroom did not appreciate his lists or insights. If he told a story lasting over 10 seconds, their eyes glazed over, and they became interested in the clock, or their neighbor's hair, or the freckles on their hand, anything but him. Chandler complained about student attention spans for the 100th time to Olena Minerva, a fellow teacher and his work confidant. Olena listened half-heartedly as they walked to a mandatory teachers' meeting. I may have to resort to reading the textbook out loud in class because no matter how short I make the assignment, they won't read on their own. Yeah, people don't read anymore, Olena replied in a defeated way. Why should they, when it's so easy to listen to podcasts or watch videos? Fine. They can listen and watch all they want, but if they aren't reading, it's like they aren't using one of their legs. The best students are always the ones who read. Are they the best because they read, or do they read because they're the best? What are you asking? Is there a cause and effect, or will motivated students always do what the teacher asks? Chandler shot her a frustrated look. Why do you challenge everything I say? Can't I make one simple conclusion without bringing you data to back it up? You said you like that I'm skeptical. Of everyone else, but not of me. They turned a corner in the hallway, and Chandler changed the subject. Have you heard anything about the speaker or what this is about? Olena shook her head and said grimly, Does it matter? For the past year and a half, the district office had imposed once-a-month training seminars on the high school staff. They met after school and were supposed to be inspired by whatever guest speaker the district provided. So far, Chandler and Olena had left every meeting less motivated than when they arrived. They were not alone. The seminars had turned into a running joke with most teachers. They especially laughed at the time a woman dressed in sandals and a floor-length robe proposed they stop teaching history and start teaching future. Chandler and Olena flopped into chairs surrounding one of the lunch tables at the back of the school's cafeteria. They had a clear but distant view of the short stage used for plays and talent contests. Someone from the district office held a microphone and made announcements before bantering with the principal. Then she announced the seminar speaker would be Jefferson Mills, who worked at a local college, wrote a book, and ran a podcast. You ever heard of this guy? Chandler asked Olena. Olena shrugged her shoulders and shook her head. Jefferson Mills took the microphone and in a powerfully smooth voice said, I understand your pain. Every month you listen to experts telling you you're doing it all wrong. That's not what I'm here to say. After hearing those first words, Chandler perked up. He turned his phone over so he could not see the screen. For all kinds of reasons, mostly involving money, people will tell you the education system has always been broken. That somehow everyone who came before us was too stupid to realize it, and too ignorant to see an easier, revolutionary way. But I'm here to tell you that's baloney. You already know what works. You know that real learning takes effort. It can't be made easy. It requires reading and old-fashioned memorizing and practice. Students need some fundamentals. They can't rely on Google and AI as a second brain. Chandler smiled for the first time at a district seminar. He leaned over to Alina and whispered, "Who let this guy in here? Finally, a speaker who makes sense. Someone from the district office is going to get fired over this." Alina smirked in agreement. Jefferson Mills kept going and grew louder and more animated as he spoke. He encouraged the teachers to play to their unique strengths and personalities. Lean into your own style. If you teach best through music and song, sing away. If you love writing, have your students write until their fingers hurt. Variety is good. You will only be one important building block as students train their brains. Chandler's mind raced as he thought about his own skills and personality. What made him different than any other teacher? How about his love of historical dates? Was Jefferson Mills encouraging him to emphasize his lists? When the seminar ended, the faculty applauded more sincerely than usual. Chandler stood while clapping to show his appreciation. He felt freshly energized as he walked back to his classroom next to Alina. "I know what I'm going to lean into. Memorizing dates. It'll give kids a framework for history." "They're not gonna like it," Alina replied in her typically skeptical way. Chandler was about to reply that they would learn to like it, but he did not want to hear Alina contradict him. Instead, he said, "You don't need to like something for it to be good for you." "If you really think so." "I do. I'm ready to die on this hill," Chandler announced boldly. Alina raised her eyebrows. "Okay, seems like a funny hill to choose." In spite of Olina's lack of enthusiasm, Chandler grew more excited about the idea. He drove home and explained his plan to his wife as soon as he greeted her in the kitchen. He talked non-stop about Jefferson Mills and the challenge to be unique. And what was more unique about him than his date lists? "I haven't seen you this fired up since the day you started the job," Chandler's wife said with an encouraging smile. "It just makes so much sense," Chandler replied happily. The next morning, in his first period U.S. history class, Chandler announced his new purpose. "By the end of the year, you're all going to memorize 100 important dates from U.S. history. We'll learn a few new ones every week, and I'll test you over and over until they're stuck in your head." One of his more outspoken students sassily asked, "Why?" "This will give you a clear foundation and timeline. When you learn about a new event, you'll instantly be able to put it in context with what was going on at the time." "Yeah, so?" "So, if you don't know history, you'll be condemned to repeat the mistakes of the past." "You've said that before." "I know I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it." Another student raised her hand and said, "I'm not good at memorizing stuff. A lot of us aren't." "That's not true," Chandler insisted. "You just haven't had enough practice. If you put your brain to work, it can do amazing things." "Why can't we just look stuff up? We've all got phones." Chandler dug his fingernails into his palms to prevent an internal meltdown. After a few calming seconds, he said, "Your brains are there to be used, not to idle. You're going to thank me someday. Now, let's start with your first date, May 14, 1706. This was the beginning of the Jamestown colony in Virginia. Say it with me aloud 3 times." Chandler repeated his announcement during all of his classes. His reasoning grew clearer. By the last class of the day, his students recited multiple dates, and he could actually imagine them ticking off all 100 from his list by the end of the year. He left work feeling very proud of himself and convinced his new technique would redefine his career. He arrived home to find his wife waiting for him by the door, wearing her favorite dress and with her hair styled for a special occasion. "How was your day?" she asked. "Good," he replied, almost like he was asking a question. "You're all dressed up." Uh-huh. Chandler froze as he stared at his wife. The look on her face changed from happy anticipation to annoyed disappointment. Chandler knew he was missing something. What had escaped him was a date from history, November 4, 2017. His wedding day. His wife folded her arms judgmentally until he finally remembered. Our anniversary. We always go out. Right. So, where are we going? Did you make reservations? Chandler stumbled over his words as he said, I was thinking we could go someplace that doesn't need reservations. Maybe this Thai place that just opened up. I've heard good things. For a minute there, I thought you forgot, Chandler's wife said, with gentle sarcasm. Me? No. You know how I am about remembering important dates. That's what I live for. And from that point on, he added his wedding date to his top 100 events in state, national, and world history. He taught his students the date and encouraged them to remind him of it. As he told them, he did not want to repeat a mistake of the past. If you enjoyed this story, please rank it on the website 500ironicstories.com. Please subscribe on the website to get weekly updates as new stories are posted. And please share with friends using the convenient links available.